Can I call upon you to provide that historical tidbit during this conversation? Okay. No promises. Okay, you're right. Okay.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Lauren Medici. I am the Director of Engagement Programs at Omaha. I'm so delighted that you all chose to come out on this beautiful Tuesday night to talk a little bit about the Traviata. I hope all of you got the opportunity to see the opera over the weekend. If this is your first Opera in Conversation, this is our After the Curtain Opera in Conversation, where we invite 3 artists who are not part of the production, not traditionally opera artists, to experience the production and then come and talk about their thoughts. And also the hope is that that will generate, I hope you came in with thoughts or burning questions or things that you are wondering about after you've seen the opera, or that their conversation will spark some of those thoughts and questions for you. So it is called Opera in Conversation, not Opera in Lecture, for a reason. So questions are welcome, and I'll introduce our wonderful panel for tonight. Starting on this side, we have Hannah Clark, who is a theater artist, and I'm also going to have everybody at the end tell you what cool things they have coming up. They have bio sheets, so we call them. But Hannah was here with us for Don Pasquale and is stepping in for our facilitator moderator role tonight. Up next, we have Colleen, who is a playwright, and we have worked with at Opera Omaha for a number of years as part of the Poetry and Music Project, which I will just shout out. That concert is coming up April 6th. It's going to be great. Come and see. And then we have Erika, Overturff, who is the founder and CEO and artistic director of American Midwest Ballet. So, without further ado, I'll turn it over to this wonderful panel to tell us your thoughts and feelings about the Traviata.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Now, let's just get a little applause for Lauren. Yeah. I'm just saying, creating community spaces and holding space for artists and appreciators of art to come together and talk is really special. So thank you guys for being here today. It's my chiefest delight in life to talk about art, and so to be with other people who want to talk about it too is just such a delight. So let's just go down the line really quickly. Thank you for those beautiful intros, Lauren. Let's just go and say your name and then our experience with opera, right? So have you been to an opera before? What's your take on opera? So, like she said, Hannah Clark. And although my primary focus is in theater and writing, I also have the honor of working for Miss Erika here at the Ballet, doing community programs. And although I have been to a couple of operas, Don Pasquale included, my main experience with it is that I was married to an opera major. And he sung in some operas in college and did not after college, but he had a great love of opera. So.
Awesome. Yeah, Colleen, yeah, and I do playwriting, and then have been a theater artist and has worked with Opera Omaha in different ways for years. I can't believe how fast time goes. But anyway, and then I've been doing more screenwriting, and then I also kind of part of why Lauren thought I'd be a good addition or whatever is I do kind of some. One of my more recent projects that concerns kind of medical humanities. So I'm writing a piece on long COVID. And I have been to see a few operas now, mostly thanks to working with Opera Omaha, and yeah, I really enjoyed this piece. So.
I'm Erika, director of the Ballet, American Midwest Ballet, and I have been in opera as a dancer. I've choreographed for some operas, primarily Opera Omaha, and I've been to see a few operas. So that's my experience.
Erika, a little bug told me that you were actually in the first staging of La Traviata when Opera Omaha did it.
That is true.
Many years ago.
And I choreographed it.
Ah, fabulous. Okay, so how did the two stack up? I'm kidding. Whose was better?
My main memory from that was just being like, because we were just dancing like right next to the pit, and it was just a really big drop off, and we were a little close for comfort in my memory.
How exciting!
Yes, it was very exciting. So what survived unscathed. It was fine.
Wonderful. Was there a matador in the first? Do you remember? Yeah, that's okay. I did not mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. There was, the dancing. It was a couple. That's how that scene was. Yeah.
I like it. All right. Very cool. Thank you. I apologize to put you on the spot, but I've heard some super cool scuttlebutt. Great. So the first thing I want to talk about is sort of a character-first approach. So looking at our main couple, Violetta and Alfredo. What did you all think of Violetta when you first met her as a character?
She came off as very, very well liked, very popular. I'm assuming everyone here saw it, you know, yeah, when the offers the handkerchief. I thought that was a good visual representation.
Oh, when she feels faint,
yeah,
and everyone says, "Ma'am, ma'am."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good representation. People are fawning over her, they're doing over her. Yeah.
I don't have a lot to add. She was, you know, beautiful and kind of the center of attention, so you knew. So she was important to the story right off the bat.
What I like about this show is the differences it shows, the contrast, right? So I only bring such light to Violetta there at the beginning because Violetta at the end, right? It's such a contrast. She's alone. No one is doting on her. She has sent away the people who are supposed to be there for her in this vulnerable, like, end-of-life moment. And then she hears the singing and everyone else partying, right? And it's such a contrast there. So, are there any other contrasts in the show or things that you felt were great foils of each other, perhaps? I put you on the spot with that one, so I can start first unless you have something to talk about.
I was just going to say, we were talking a little bit earlier about how she's just like, life's only about pleasure. That's the only thing that matters. Everything's fine. It's all fun. And at the end, you know, it's not so much fun, so.
Yes, her perspective has changed too, right? Like, that is a story, right? It's a change. Someone undergoes the arc of their character.
Or like, is she trying to convince herself that it's all going to be?
Yeah, I like that. Awesome. So I wanted to zoom out a little bit and talk about the production itself. So Erika, we had a lovely little convo. Could you talk a little bit about the differences between a ballet production and what you might see on the stage versus an opera production and what you might see on the stage and why those are different?
Yes, I was very interested to watch all of the scenic and lighting work because that's a really important part of our work in the ballet as well. And I was actually there in the building on one of the days when they were setting everything up a few weeks before. And, you know, it eats up, that set was really cool. It eats up a big swath diagonal of the stage, you know, and they have to kind of force perspective, which was neat, and the different levels. But that is heavy stuff. You can't just fly it in and out to change the scene. So it was neat to see how they were able to change the scene, keeping that big, massive structure in place, but make it look like we were in different places. In the ballet, we use a lot more backdrops, and we try to keep the whole playing space open. And in the opera, a lot more of the stage was utilized for those big, massive pieces of scenery.
And the levels too, because when you're singing, right, you want everyone to be able to see all of the people singing. So you have so many different elevations.
And we have more of like a big, flat, open space. So we want the space.
Of the patterns, right?
Yes.
Of movement.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing was the lighting. I really liked how in the opening, when we were in that party mode, and the outside it was the dark blue cyc. They were able to use the cyc and then change the mood of the scene and also the time of day. So then you saw as they went into morning, like that cyc over like many minutes really like slowly changed. There was that feeling of like, party's over, we better go home, the sun's coming out. And then it got pink and beautiful, and it really went with what she was singing about. And so I thought that was very effective.
Yeah, the lights matching the mood of the singing was very effectively done. I liked how they, that cyc, or the cyclorama she's describing, right, which is the back white stretched piece of fabric that they can put lights and projections, whatever on. And traditionally you may light it from above with a lot of colors, and I noticed with it they lit it from below, so you could have like natural style of the sun kind of coming up, those oranges and pinks, and whew, it was like, okay, I see. It was gorgeous. Yes. I'm going to popcorn it to the audience because you all are here and you have lovely opinions too. What was something about the scenic, the design, the costumes, anything that you want to volunteer as being something you liked, a favorite, something you appreciated, anything at all? You can say it's fun too. It's okay, it's a safe space. Yes, ma'am.
I thought the opening was beautiful with all that glittery.
Oh, where they were.
I didn't expect that, and it was. I don't know who sprinkled the fairy dust on our Omaha this season, but everything has been outstanding.
Yes, definitely.
I agree. Yeah, magic in the air for sure. Absolutely. Anybody else want to popcorn in?
I thought the slow opening of the curtain in Act 3 was stunning.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, melting. Yeah.
Oh, the passage of time, right? Like when you're she just lays there immobile. Slowly the curtain comes up. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, something that kind of just occurred to me, in the opening scene, she's dressed in white. She's, very visible, And then in the next scene, it's more subdued, what she wears when in their country house with Alfredo. And then in the third scene, when she comes to the party, she's in a dark dress. She's not happy. And then at the final, well, she's in a nightgown, but it's white again. So I think that's kind of interesting. I don't know if that was purposely done, but.
I betcha there was I love that full circle. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Great. Well then, let's pivot a little bit. I want to talk about Violetta as overarching the story, right? So we're learning about this woman, this courtesan, right, who is a sex worker, right? A person who is, although very wealthy and very esteemed, is still a prostitute, right? What experience do you all have with this trope of, with prostitutes? I heard that.
It was a long pause.
That's because my brain was like, wait, reword it. Very soon. Opera and conversation. What are we talking about? Amazing. Stories that have this character, this prostitute with a heart of gold, right? This is a trope that we see a lot in art. And it is an individual who, even though she is in a very society low place, proves herself to have a beautiful heart of gold and a real kindness and real love in her. So any experience with that as a trope in story and not in a retreat? This has been a pleasure doing my last opera.
We witnessed your last time. No.
Just like Violetta. Oh joy.
I don't know. Maybe because I'm a child of the '80s. Pretty Woman comes to mind. Like classic.
Well, I get all the opera's emails. So right in the email it said, this story, or these other stories were kind of derived from the same story. It said Pretty Woman and Moulin Rouge. And that one caught my attention because I'm like, well, I like those, so I'm probably going to like this too.
There we go. Yeah, what's that called?
It was the opera in Pretty Woman that she was watching.
There we go. Whoa! So why? Why do we think that this is an effective tool? Why do we think this is an eternal story, right? What art is supposed to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable, right? So what is the value in there, do you think?
It's kind of like moral judgments versus your own happiness kind of story.
Like the struggle is the human desire versus society's moral judgments?
I think there's also, there's definitely like a gender lens you can put with it being usually like a woman who's got the heart of gold, or it is the sex work that has the heart of gold or whatever. But like, I do think there's also like an aspect that it seems often that people that have like the least will be the most generous. I mean, it's kind of a thing I remember in like, in being a bartender and service worker or whatever, that would be kind of a common thing. Like people that maybe you wouldn't think have a lot of money to tip would be the most generous, often with whatever money they had. I think there's something, there is like a truth to human nature with that. Sometimes I think to grasp it, like when you have something to lose, you grasp it harder. When you have less to lose, you are more free with it. And it seems like there must be an aspect that kind of rings true.
She was a very successful sex worker.
True.
She had quite a lot of possessions. She was financing their country house by selling her possessions. So I think she was a very desired woman in those times. And my understanding of those times is it's not common. But it's fascinating that she fell in love. She'd had men taking care of her, but it sounds like in this relationship she actually fell in love and she sold all her stuff to maintain it, knowing that she had terminal disease. I thought the real contrast with his father coming, not recognizing the reality of the love of these two people, with the social stigma of the son being involved with this sexual.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's talk about that scene. So Violetta is living happily, right? She doesn't have all of the prestige. She doesn't want any of it. She gets invited to a party and she's like, no thanks, I'm done with that. I have everything that I need. Oh, pastoral bliss. And then who comes a-knocking? But Alfredo's father. Why does she do it? Violetta, please help me answer this question for her. Why does she do it? Why does she give up her joy, her happiness, her peace with this fabulous man? That's what racked my brain as I left. And I think an easy answer would be, well, she's a very kind individual. She's probably very sympathetic to this daughter's plight as a young woman, right? I'm sure that she did not have an easy time trying to find her place in the world as a young woman, so she feels for the sister. But why do you think?
But we're saying that she's kind, but really she's like tricking him and taking that choice to spend time away from him. Like he might say, I don't care about that stuff. I just want us to be together for as long as we have.
So it feels a little selfishly motivated to you.
Well, I guess I don't know why. Just the thought popped in.
I like that. This is what the sharing is for, yeah. So you're saying that she could have given Alfredo the choice and let him decide, or at least brought him into that conversation. Yeah.
She's kind of, well, her and the father are just like deciding to do this thing and leave him out of the picture, but yeah. Why? Just for the sister?
Why? Okay.
Well, she's been told this is going to ruin his family. They just got into upper middle class or whatever. And the scandal of his son being involved with sex work, even though she was in the high end of the trade, would ruin their family, and the marriage proposal to the daughter would be withdrawn.
Right.
This is her opportunity to change her social class. So she bought into this thing. I really can't do this to this family. Sacrifice
Like the whole
myself.
family.
Yeah, she was going to ruin that family and the daughter's chances for success in changing social class. So she said, okay, fine, I will make the ultimate sacrifice. Now, if she had talked to Alfredo and said, hey, your dad came to visit me and had this conversation, you think, oh my gosh, forgive my dad for being still in love, there'd be no opera.
So we kind of had to see what we saw. Yeah, okay.
Secrets so much make the story, right? Yeah.
Violetta was doing the one job that women could do in that time period and be independent of men. Otherwise, you had to be married to someone, as the daughter did, to have any class at all. You know, and so why it is tricky. It's true there wouldn't have been an opera without it.
That's what we need. Good circumstance, we need bad luck, and we need passion, right? And then we've got a Broadway story. Yes, sir.
Yeah, piggybacking off that, and then also like your art bringing awareness, the mistrope about whether the fallen woman or the working woman. One thing that's always, I guess, I don't have an answer for this, so this is probably the question is how the Count and other high society people are okay being around a working woman while working, so it's transactional, but that there's this arbitrary line that once it becomes real, romance, personal, then it's bad. So why do we have these distinctions, when we're okay with them in some capacity, but not in others, and basically, I guess, I don't know what's the best way, but I guess when you think of that artistically, or, in each of your areas of expertise, what kind of, I guess, conveyances are you thinking of?
So to paraphrase the question I'm hearing, we see this repeated around these rules, these rigid structures that sometimes feel so arbitrary, but they really do change people's lives. And like how is that expressed in our art? What kind of tools do we? I like that. I mean, coming from my personal work with Shakespeare, you see it all the time. There's whether it is a tragedy or a comedy, there is always some sticking point, some linchpin, some catch-22 that has our character just right there in the middle of it. And I think it's so timeless because everyone, no matter your age or your gender or your ethnicity or your income bracket, faces moments where they feel so stuck in a system that was not created for them to succeed. It's a universal struggle, albeit vastly different kinds of struggles depending on those diversity factors that I listed. So I think what I love about that is it's unifying, because empathy is very unifying. And so what art does is it takes a set of constructs that we really don't experience, thank goodness, we are not in 1853, and we can all be in this room together. Not having personal experiences like work, but I think that's the tool, right? Is that imagination, is that empathy? Yeah. Do you guys have something to add to that? Where like artwork? I mean, Colleen, you have worked with a lot of people who have a really broad, expansive worldviews, right? Like I just really admire your work, and you've worked in schools and prisons and all these different spaces. And how do you find that art with underserved individuals, right? How does that play out for you? What's that strength? What are those conveyances, I guess? We're using a lot of strange terms here.
So, okay, sorry, no, I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. So,
It's kind of a wonky question. I couldn't figure it
Yeah.
out myself.
no, sometimes
Knowing Colleen worked in hearing this question,
yeah.
I would ask you, Colleen, because you write documentary style theater, you're talking about the experience of real people who face these prejudices and this feeling of we can't interact with them. How do you see those systems working, and how do you decide to portray them in your art?
I guess I'm gonna not waste time with my thing. I'm gonna do think time on that. If you had a thought to share on the topic first, I'm gonna take a think moment. That's a great question.
Bouncing off of that, right? We were speaking a little earlier about the importance of narratives that show us sick people and that show us terminally ill people, right? And Verdi created this opera off of a play, right, that showed not just other people's opinions about someone who's a sex worker and someone who's trapped in the system, but from her perspective. She is our heroine. She is our protagonist. And that is an act of revolution. And it is an act of freedom, right, to show people this interior perspective. So I think that's one thing that I love when playwrights do. I love when any art does that. But they're like, this thing, I'm going to show you right on the inside. You're going to see her bedroom. You're going to see her in her nightgown. We're not going to hide this stuff. We're not going to look at it from the outside. We're getting right there in it, right? And we're going to show how it affects people in a very human way. Because that's how you make change. That's how you get empathy, right? I had very little understanding of the life of a French courtesan before seeing La Traviata. So come back around.
Well, no, I mean, I think, in general, art has a particular power or ability that I think we've all experienced when we see a movie or a play or anything that shows us a glimpse into people's lives that maybe we normally get have kind of knocked out of our vision. I think in this piece, it was very striking. That at the end, you talked about, she's all alone and isn't surrounded by the same people that celebrated her when she was well. And I think that spoke very powerfully to what we do often do with sick and disabled folks. So like I mentioned, I'm doing the piece on long COVID, and I think one of the most really heartbreaking parts about talking to some of the people that have it really severely is the isolation aspect. You know, we have these, like, it's not like tuberculosis wasn't impacting a lot of people at that time, I bet, you know, and so like this idea that like something that can impact so many people, if they're not able to, I don't know, grit through it or whatever, you know, whatever, somehow find a way to integrate in society in a way that, you know, we expect, they can get so isolated and cut off. And I think a beautiful thing art can do is take us to those people to show, well, no, like anyone can end up in this position, or anyone can be here. Like it can build that like empathy component, I think, really beautifully. I have no idea if that spoke at all to what you were trying to ask, though. I just want to make sure you get your thought fully connected with.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does, because then I think of Verdi doing it as like, obviously the father is the one that has to be convinced that these arbitrary lines, like, you know, it's fine if your son goes to a party and hangs around with these ladies of the night, but God forbid you fall in love and make a life with her. Like, you know, again, and then showing that being like, well, why can't we allow ourselves to do these things? And then the art's showing like, well, you know, there's kind of things that are messed up in that, and then obviously, like, you know, art bringing awareness to that and kind of making it more poignant, and, you know, showing the empathy not just to the character but also to the audience.
Right, and the tragedy is that she does change the father's mind, right? She changes everybody's mind, but it's too late. It's too late, and so many good tragedies, it's too late. It shows that the thing can be done, but if only it had been sooner. That's, you know. You spoke of the lens of chronic illness, right? And that when we put that lens over her decisions, over her actions, everything just becomes so much more dimensional. So earlier I was asking, like, okay, why does she do it? And I thought, oh, my timekeeping device. All right, just letting us know we've got 15 minutes. Lovely questions. Thank you, Tom. To your point that she is chronically ill, and if she genuinely doesn't think that she has a lot of time left to live, who is she to ruin someone else's life, someone's family, who may have many, many more years just for her temporary happiness? And that, for a lot of people, that like self-sacrifice is the definition of love. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Any other on that before I pivot us? Let's talk about the dance scene. Yeah! Oh, great scene. Highlights. Let's just quickly say highlights from that scene, things that we liked. Me personally, I love a tambourine. That's rhythm right there, and I think it spoke just volumes to the contrast, like I was saying before. We've got the bright, rigid, very fancy, formal settings, and then we've got swooping fabric and tapestries and darkness and people moving in these very provocative ways. So it was the perfect contrast of the 2 environments, right? To have like this lively dancing over here and this real rigid, like, oh, I'm sorry, I cannot love you, it's not appropriate, over on this other side, right? Highlights, what'd you like?
Yeah, for me, I love the dancers all did such a great dance, did a beautiful job. Yeah, I just thought that was like such an energetic scene, and yeah, it did contrast so well. I don't know if everyone else like, because to me, everyone's making these decisions that kind of went against their like instincts, right? You know, like she loves him, but she's like, no, you know, I won't let your family suffer. And I think even like, I don't know, I even got the really impression the father on some level would have wanted his son to be happy, but like, you know, like all this like kind of like heavy stuff. And that scene was such like about like the you know, instinct in the body and people coming together and all that stuff, that I thought was such a really cool contrast and way to like then have these like bookended, much more subdued acts or scenes, and that compared to that one. But yeah, I really love that.
I was noticing in that scene, because there was such great energy throughout. I loved how it was such a big cast, you know, the dancers, but everyone on stage. It was fun to see the costumes too, and how you were talking about the color. I think that's so important to storytelling in a show. You know, really can set the tone. So all of what they were wearing was related, even though each person was unique. So that kind of sets a mood too. And then it was just fun to watch, since I know, you know, those dancers. It was fun to see, like, what were they doing on the side, the main actions going on here, but what are you doing over here? And just watch all of the individuals, you know, that aren't the focus of the attention, but what everyone's doing is really important to the scene, they're really creating that story and that energy, because if they were like frozen doing nothing, sitting in place or just staring at the leads, that would not be the right feel. And you know, if they weren't there and we were on an empty stage, that wouldn't be the right feel. So it's neat to see how those big groups of people can really flesh out the scene.
Right, it tells the fullness of the story, right? Because it's about a person and the public gaze and what people think of her and how that's going to affect her happiness in her life. And so we need a bunch of people in that space. We need a lot of silent opinions around the doorways, you know, putting that pressure on the scene.
I saw that dancing is kind of an overlay of a separate story to kind of take us away from the intensity of what we're watching. I thought it was so well directed, the way the dancers were integrated. It was a huge stage, huge cast, but you notice the movement amongst them. And these are the gypsies coming to town. They're fleecing people for their money.
Did anyone see the one stealing off of the table?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when she's throwing the money, insulting her, she's picking it up.
Right.
So I've seen this out for a number of times. I thought this was particularly out for the way they used that scene was good.
Yeah, the introduction of like the Romani people, right, like traveling groups who would come through. That's what an epitome of freedom, right? What a group of people that are, you know, perceived as very free and very open. And then you get like a fun matador story, right? I wanted to talk briefly about just what you had mentioned in like body narrative, right? So we've got people who are very comfortable in their bodies, and their bodies are like powerful tools, right? And we see these highly capable dancers. And I just think it's so important as a contrast, Hannah's favorite word tonight, between these people and the control they have over their bodies and the joy that it's bringing them, and Violetta and the constraint she feels on her body and her body's betraying her. And what we find a lot in fiction is when there are stories about big heroes, right, epics, these stories of war and of masculinity, it's so cerebral sometimes, and it's all about actions and deeds. And the other side of that coin is stories of femininity and stories of the body and stories of being in space. And I will never forget one of my literature professors said that stories about bodies are the truth, and we need more of them. We need to talk about what's happening in bodies, especially female bodies, because that's so taboo, or it's so secret. So big ups to Alexander Dumas and Verdi for putting a story about a woman's body on the stage. Yeah. And then also, a matador doing a bunch of spins. Just good stuff. Cool. Now let's talk about something a little sad, which is the death scene. So I wanted to ask you guys, that last scene, there's a lot of tragedy in there. What for you was, I'm going to say the word the real tragedy. Obviously, all of it is a tragedy. But what for you was the real tragedy in that moment? I'll be more specific. Who do you think is most affected? Right? Violetta, obviously she's dying, so she's affected quite a bit. But there's these people around her. And I will prompt you now, if you would, to speak on our beautiful friend Jamie, who played the maid, and she did a wonderful job. Her debut on the stage for Omaha. She did some great outreach programs with us over late. I thought she did a great job of performance, because I felt that, how much it affected just her. Just this maid who is so devoted to Violetta. Yeah. Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, no, I thought that part was, I actually found myself connecting, I don't know how other people connected to us on stage, but I found myself connecting to her more so, and her loss more so than Alfredo's, in the sense not that he didn't obviously care about her, I mean, he came all the way back on, but there's something about, she was in that woman's life day in, day out, and you knew that after that, I mean, besides the fact we don't know what financially just the rest of her life would look like, but she just so clearly was the caretaker. And for anyone, I'm sure all of us, if we haven't yet, we eventually are caretaking a parent or a family member. I know I have, and that is, really hard work. And so that moment when the doctor says to her, there's a few hours left, I know that punched me in the sternum. So yeah, I thought that character really actually carried a lot of the sympathy in the scene for me.
Yeah, what I like so much about opera is that it gives voice to silent burdens, right? There's so much voice in opera, and I love when it's stories about these silent burdens, so that they're asking the caretaker to have this knowledge and not share it with Violetta, right? To take on that burden of knowing. She only has a couple of hours. They're asking Violetta to take on this burden of this like hidden chronic illness, right? As she so bravely tries to, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And anybody who has lived with that will know that that's an incredible way to bear all of those silent burdens. And instead of grinning and bearing it silently, they get to sing an aria about it. And don't we all wish we could just break into an aria whenever we're overwrought with sadness and anger?
That was
so helpful. Wouldn't it? Oh, gosh. Okay. We'll bring it back to some fun stuff here for our last sort of point here. The first will be favorite songs, favorite moments, anything that stood out to you. It's like, oh my gosh, I just adored. Other than the dance, which I, you know.
That was my favorite.
Oh, okay, that'll still be your favorite.
Okay.
That's all right. But I'll challenge you and say what specifically.
Ooh. I'll think on that. It was just like an overall impression of that whole sequence was really, I'll think.
Okay. Can I piggyback off that? Yeah. The contrast between everyone together and moving and like grouping into these small clusters and talking with each other and connecting and like going where they want and doing what they want. And then the very next like big moment is after the embarrassment and the travesty of him disrespecting her in front of me. There's this great song where everyone is apart and they're separate and they're all lit individually and they're all singing about their own unique experience in this moment, right? They're saying like, Alfredo's really making an ass of himself because he doesn't understand, and I do know what's going on, but I can't say anything. And that like dramatic irony and that like isolation and loneliness and separateness, because that also is necessary for us to see the opera. If anybody in that moment had been like, whoa, Alfredo, dude, your sister, put two and two together, like stop, she's trying to protect you. But nobody did. So we get a song about it.
I think the music too. I mean, that sticks to my mind. I think a lot of, and it's the same way in ballet too. Like sometimes, I mean, it can be the story, it can be how the production's put together visually, but a lot of times the music is what, like you might go and not know this story, and then you hear the music and you're like, I know this, So it's neat. I think that's why some ballets, operas, and things carry on, is because people also, connect with that music.
And it's familiar. I mean, the number of the pieces where they started going up, oh, wait, oh, I didn't know this was from this. Yes, of course, the big popular ones, sure, but there's some of those little ones. And the way that the music is so intertwined in this story, right? The plot itself is music. He sings about love and he inspires her with this concept of love that she's never thought, like, oh, instead of this transactional relationship, it can be something that completely like changes me. Instead of being my like vehicle, it's my fuel, right? And he sings it out the window over and over again, and she hears it and it calls her back. Yeah, I wish all of our plots could be handled with song. If I could sing about my taxes. I'll try it.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Well, the music that I get absolute earworm about where it plays over and over is the cry, cry, cry.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is when the whole plot changed, everything changed. It went from frivolous and beautiful to absolutely tragic at that moment, and I just keep hearing that music.
Haunting. Yeah, and him, I can just see him walking the stage and being like, oh gosh, you're really gonna do this. Yeah, cry all you want. Give me a hug. I'm so sorry, but thank you, but also I'm so sorry. It's wonderful, the dynamic relationship there, because it would be easy to make him this terrible guy who comes in and bullies her into his decision, right? But he's pretty sympathetic. He says, I'm so sorry, he acknowledges, I'm asking so much of you. You're like, yeah, you are, how about you stop? But he feels, it's that unstoppable object, unmovable force, right? That's where the action happens. Thank you for sharing that. Other favorite moments? We're going to open it up.
Well, here's a less favorite moment. I thought the direction overall was good. But at the end, when the doctor comes in, there's summons him, and he finally gets there, he rushes in, climbs on her bed, gives her a big hug, and says he's the lover. I
Right.
thought to myself, okay, I don't understand this direction.
I'm certainly not the director. For me, that read as she's so, so sad, so alone, and this friendly face, like the doctor is so invested, perhaps too invested, in like making her last few days pleasant, that he tells her like, oh, you'll be fine, you'll be great, I'll see you tomorrow. Like, okay, doc, yeah, sure, all right. Nobody's bothering you. Thank you for sharing that. We can also speak of least favorite parts as well. This is a safe space. Just the cancel.
My favorite part was the dancing, where you're taking the dancers and they're reduced down to 20-25% of the space that they normally dance in. And they're dancing with, they dance with this many people on stage, but those people aren't dancers. And to see them focus in on the area when they're dancing, it was spectacular. So.
They were very tight. Yeah, when they're called fouette turns, the matador doing the spins and the spins and the spins, everyone's getting closer and closer, and the spins and the spins, like, someone's gonna catch a foot. No one does because they're professionals. But tension, right? These are all tools of tension, because that kind of tension carries us through the story. Thank you for sharing.
That's my least favorite scene, except for the dancers. I mean, I just think everybody's behaving so badly. I really like the whole rest of the opera, but that scene makes me crazy. And I love that we have dancers doing beautiful stuff
because the debauchery is cringeworthy for you.
like the scene at all.
It's pretty despicable. Yeah, they really want to make a contrast of like, oh, these are not good people. Yes.
Because my two favorite parts of this opera is always the death theme, the fact that it's a orchestral and it's not a motif of a song, but then the kind of my favorite is always the euphoria right before the death.
Yes.
All of a sudden it's the end, but at least like there's some semblance of happiness, and I don't know, getting maybe so whacked out and so sick that all of a sudden at least you felt good for that last second and did have some hope, and all of a sudden maybe this was going to be happy. I think I always joke with my friends that maybe this time she'll survive.
And that's like an indicator of some great art. Even if Romeo and Juliet die at the end, you're like, but maybe this time, no, and Violetta still goes down. But I was talking to a fellow artist afterwards, and he says that was the best death scene I've ever seen, because the entire time you're like, no, yes, whoa, and then just, oh joy, she goes down.
But I love that she spoke it, though. It was spoken and not sung. That was so powerful, because if it was sung, it would have taken away from that. But because she whispers it, it was beautiful.
It was really beautiful. And so vulnerable, right? So human. She doesn't have any of that literal or metaphorical bravado. It's just her.
The tension of, you brought up earlier, the slow curtain.
Yes.
I mean, because it's with opera, you have music and emotion that the singers are providing. With very few people, except for very few people, you don't know what they're saying, unless you want to keep paying attention to superior titles. But honestly, that scene was great, and that's what I love about opera, is you just get emotion.
Right.
You're not getting it explained to you necessarily.
You know what's going on intrinsically.
Yeah.
You're like, I know what's happening here. I don't need to speak Italian to know what's happening here. Yeah, I love that.
I don't know if this is on topic here, but I've always thought the father kind of gets a bad rap. I think he's not a bad guy at all, because he's concerned about his daughter, he's concerned about his son, and what's his son spending time with the courtesan? I mean, that's her business. And she could have any man. Why is she got her clutches on his son? And he doesn't have music to portray him as a bad guy. He's not, his singing is nice. He's very sympathetic to his son's unhappiness when she leaves him. And he is sympathetic at the end. So I think I don't think there's any real villain in this opera. So anyway, I think all the characters are sympathetic.
Thank you.
Tuberculosis is the...
I was going to say, who's the real villain? It's illness. Yes. Thank you for speaking to that. Like I said, it would have been so easy for him to become a mustache twirling, like
Archie Bunker. Yeah.
Right, right. But he embraces her. He understands. But he still feels so compelled, right? They're all the victims at the end there. Very well put. Any other questions, comments, things we want to share with each other as a group of art lovers here?
I just wonder if the father goes to Violetta because he thinks that Alfredo is not capable of making the decision, and it makes me wonder if Alfredo is perhaps younger and less experienced. And I'd be curious to hear his thoughts.
The phrase I wrote down was, why do they circumvent Alfredo's power? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on there? Yeah. Thoughts about the tricking, as it were.
He probably doesn't want to be told what to do by his dad.
So you're thinking perhaps that the father's already tried to approach Alfredo on this? Or he just assumes, like, nah.
He might
stubborn
just
boy.
know his son and know, well, and two, if Alfredo's the type to be that besotted with her and really hardly knew her for that year leading up to, like, I imagine it's kind of hard to divert him,
Right,
so.
yeah, it doesn't speak of, like, even though it's a beautiful boon and it actually works, right? Like Violetta's happy, he's happy, it actually worked. Usually when a young man falls in love with a courtesan, it doesn't end well and she ends up taking all his money, right? Or there's these stories that I'm sure the father has heard, so he's understandably concerned, and he doesn't know Violetta's heart, right? Until it's too late, until he's already convinced her and she agrees, and he goes, oh, you really will? Oh, ooh, hope this doesn't turn out badly. What do you think?
I don't know. I think he maybe changes his mind when he realizes that she's selling all of her possessions to support the lifestyle, and then realizes, well, she's not trying to take advantage of my son. She really does love him.
Yeah, one thing I've always thought there in the plan that is, like, as a professional, he's like, well, this is a professional. I'll speak to her professional nature. That will be like, my son's an idiot. So, like, I can't speak to him like, business is business. And that's what I mean when he enters in. That's where he's like, don't you realize what you are? I'm a professional man. I'm middle class. You know what you are. I know what I am. What are you doing? And knowing that his son will just be like, well, love is love is love. So, like, okay, I'm not going to stalk my lovesick son because it's not business. But what's affecting, this is affecting my business, my family, my standing. She understands that. She knows what her standing is. And then we're thinking that the double RA changes, goes to business or personal. That's
Yeah, I love the change when they come in so formally and so distantly, and by the end they're hugging and crying and embracing, and they share this love of Alfredo, which really brings them together. Yeah, thank you for that. Anybody else? Thoughts, comments, preferred comments?
I think it's always good if you go to see a show and then you're still thinking about it days afterwards. So we're all here, so that's a good thing.
We'll close on a trivial matter, a triviality. If you were to make this show into a modern film, no opera experience necessary on the part of the actors, who would you cast as Violetta, Alfredo, or my favorite, the dad?
Let's open this up to everyone.
Oh, of course, yes. Open casting call. I was thinking like a nice George Clooney for the father, right? He's got those kind eyes. Ooh, or a Tom Hanks. Like if Tom Hanks came to me and was like, "Hey, my daughter," I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, you're right, Tom Hanks."
He'd be much more sympathetic.
He would be.
Loving,
Yeah.
So if we change it to a mom, because they've done this for a couple of her roles now, Michelle Yeoh. I think she does such a good job as the protective, you sympathize with her as a parent, but also sometimes what are you doing? Like she's great and crazy with Rich Asians. I think she would have been interesting.
I don't have a casting one, but I always thought when I was thinking, I didn't know how Omaha was going to do this, but I thought it would be really cool that they did like the 1880s, 1890s in Omaha with Madam Wilson, the Washburn, being like that, and that time where it was corrupt and these things, and here's like the new bigwig Omaha businessmen who are coming in. One of their son gets involved, one of the prostitutes down there, and you know, I always thought that would have been just kind of putting an American 1890s Wild West kind of twist to it.
Love that. Yes. Get on to Wilson Lunch Plan.
The next time we'll do it in Omaha.
There we go. Fabulous. Well, thank you all so very much for being here. We'll close by just talking about some of our projects that we're doing in case you want to come and join us with those. Lauren, anything else that I'm missing?
Oh, you're going to go and then I'll go.
Okay, thank you, my dear. Great. Well, like I said, I'm Hannah Clark. I do a project called Old School Shakespeare Omaha. So we do Shakespeare in bars in the spirit of the way old Willie Shakes did it, which is very serious actors, no director, one rehearsal, and we do it in a bar. So in emulation of that style, like they didn't have a lot of rehearsal time, they just had the text and they had what they could use around them. We sort of improvise and do shows like that. So we're doing Julius Caesar. It's an election year after all, and it is March. So you can check us out on social media, Old School Shakespeare Omaha, or if you want to come to our opening night, which is always the most fun one, we're at Benson Theater on Leap Day on February 29th at 7 p.m. So if you want to, you know, every 4 years, come watch Caesar get stabbed, and us hopefully remember all our lines.
Do you do it at different locations, or?
Yeah, we're doing Benson Theater, and then they set it up as a bar for us because, like I said, we like to do it in a bar, as that is the closest we have to an Elizabethan theater in modern day. And we're at Lucky Bucket out in Bellevue on Saturday the 2nd, and then Site One Brewery over on Farnham Street, and then we're doing a drive show for St. Patrick's Day. So if you don't like green beer, come to Zen Coffee West and have a green cappuccino.
Actually, I moved to Chicago a couple of years ago. I'm in town to visit, but so I don't think I have anything currently going on in Omaha. I eventually will hopefully have the piece on long COVID kind of popping up a few places, but for now, I am just existing in the Windy City. So.
We are working on Cinderella, and that will be this April and May. It's going to be at the Hawk Family Arts and Culture Center and at the Orpheum Theater. It's a brand new production for our company, so all the sets, costumes, choreography, everything's being created, and it's so much fun. So come see us.
I caught you, right? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Good.
So, Opera Omaha, I mentioned we have Poetry and Music, which is coming up on April 6th at 1 o'clock at the Omaha Conservatory of Music. Colleen has helped us with that project for many years, as a poet and a writing mentor. And then we will be back for Opera and Conversations, before you know it, for our last opera of the season, El Último Sueño de Frida y Diego. Community events for that will actually start on April 5th. We'll have information out in the next couple of days and weeks about all the community events happening for that. But I will tell you right now, we're partnering with Johnson Castle for Opera Conversations, and there's going to be a community art show in their Carriage House Gallery inspired by Frida and Diego. So lots of cool things happening for Frida and Diego. I will also note that go see Julius Caesar, and then come next year, we just announced our season on Monday, and we're doing, with the English concert, we're doing the Baroque opera of Giulio Cesare. So
I saw that in your program, and I was like, yes.
Yes. So you can compare and contrast if you like for those things. So thank you all for being here. And a round of applause for a wonderful family. A round of applause for all of you. I was sitting in the back just with delight of all of your wonderful conversation and insights and questions, and I really appreciate you all being here, and I will echo the idea that if you're still thinking about it a couple of days later, we did a good job. So whether you like it or not, that's irrelevant. So thank you all for being here, and we'll see you in just a couple of weeks. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you.